Hey, we're celebrating Hanukkah pretty soon. It's coming up, and I just wanted to let you know we are not going to be using a Hanukkah this year. We used a Hanukkah the last couple years, it's just tradition, but the more that I thought about it, the more that I realized, that is actually just Jewish tradition. It's not biblical. We are actually going to be using a real menorah because it actually has the right amount of candles or lights on the lampstand. And so we're not going to do the whole, candle lighting thing, one, side going from the other side. We kind of looked into that and did that a little bit as a family the first year or two that we celebrated Hanukkah, but then we realized, you know what? We are not Jewish. We are Messianic, Gentile Christians, And so we love the Hebrew heritage, we love the meaning of Hanukkah. We love the story of Hanukkah with the Maccabees and what God did and their victory and restoration of the temple that was desecrated by the Greeks and the Assyrians who were trying to force God's people to worship Zeus and the other Greek gods. We love that story. We love to visit that. We love to learn about it as a family. But as far as the traditions, we don't do the dreidel. We don't do the Hanukkah. Those are just Jewish traditions. Those actually aren't biblical Christian Hebrew traditions. And the Bible doesn't tell us to ever have a Hanukkah, but it does talk about the menorah. And so we are actually going biblical more and more every year that we celebrate these feasts and these holy days. We want to make sure we're observing them the best way that we know how to. And the Lord has kind of changed that over the years. By the way, when we get a menorah, when we purchase one personally for our family, we don't want all the crazy symbols on it. There's a lot of mystic and pagan tradition that gets mixed in with the godly traditions and godly artifacts, I guess you could say, candle holders, lampstands, things like that. So we make sure that there aren't a whole lot of symbols that we are not sure if they are godly or not. One of these is the star of, they call it the Star of David, but there is no Star of David in Scripture. And actually the Scripture mentions about another star that's a pagan star called the Star of Rembrandt. And I don't know exactly, I don't think anyone really knows exactly if that is or not, but the Star of David is actually just a very recent thing that they have slapped on the Jewish culture. And so we don't even really go there with that symbol either, and we don't really have that in our house. But we have a very kind of plain Jane, very simple menorah that we use. And so we're excited to light this up as we celebrate an amazing time of year that we can actually just reflect on the miracle that the Lord did as he restored his temple. The whole history of the whole 8 days of oil, that's kind of tradition too. But what we can see in history is the Lord helping his people have victory, him giving them victory over the Greeks and Assyrians, being able to restore the temple so that Jesus, Yeshua, could be in that same temple. So that there would be a temple of the Lord, of Yahweh, of Yehovah, of Yahuwah, however you pronounce it, right? Of Adonai. So there would be a temple of Adonai that Jesus could actually be celebrating these feasts and holy days in his day. And so that he could fulfill all of the prophecies that were in the Old Testament of Scripture that he fulfilled. There needed to be a temple restored. And Hanukkah is the story of that. So I'm going to just warn you, if you're learning about this as a family and you have young kids, there's some gory details about what the Assyrians and the Greeks did as they were trying to force them to worship Zeus and these other pagan gods, which the Bible calls demons, right? These were demonic spirits involved in this cult that they were trying to get God's people to worship. They did horrible things to the Hebrews, absolutely vile things. So you want to make sure that as you are maybe reading in Maccabees and maybe telling the story of Hanukkah, that you are making sure that it's appropriate for the ages of your children, because some things they might be ready to hear, some things they might not. I think there's some things in that story I wasn't even ready to hear. And so just a little word of warning, but I really hope that you start to learn about these amazing celebrations and you discover the wonder of these feasts and holy days, these appointed times and these, traditional remembrances, and you learn the history behind it. But just know, you don't have to celebrate it as a secularized or mixed culture does, like they do today, just like things have crept into the Christian culture today. Look at each holiday that you celebrate, okay? What do bunnies and eggs have to do with Jesus's resurrection? Then research the history of the bunny and the eggs, and you're going to see that's total paganism woven in. And it's absurd, some of the things that got woven in throughout time. So we don't look at each holiday or, celebration as just one whole thing. We actually kind of, dissect, okay, what are the traditions associated with this festival, holy day, holiday, whatever it is, and which ones do we want to actually do as a family, and which ones do we just want to push to the side because it's just not even godly.